People are suffering right now. They are at a red line of stress because terrible decisions are being made about shutting the country down based on data that is not happening. Your models are not working. I don't care if you think it's acceptable or in the perimeter of acceptable conversation because you're a left-wing nut looking to hit Trump. I don't care if you think that's acceptable. Tucker Carlson showed us last night, and other hosts as well, Hannity and others, have been plowing straight through that fence and talking about this anyway, and we are beating the liberal media at their own game, Joe. I'm going to show you examples of this throughout the show. Let me play this video first last night of Tucker talking about this exact same thing. The media, you either want the stock market to, or you want people to die if we don't shut the economy down. Tucker, Hannity, and others have been plowing through it along with this show. Listen to this last night. This is how we beat them and show you how infantile these idiots are. Check this out.
What would have happened, for example, if we'd adopted a more conventional response to this epidemic? What if we'd asked the elderly and the immunocompromised and anyone else facing statistically higher rates of risk to stay inside, cloistered away? And then at the same time, allowed the rest of the population to use informed common sense and continue to work? What if we'd done that a month ago? Would the death rate today be much higher than it is now? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. But it's clearly a conversation we should have had before we locked the entire country down and put 10 million people out of work. But we didn't have that conversation. Instead, we outsourced the decision to public health officials. And that's the strange irony of the moment we're living through. One of the main lessons of this crisis is that the public health establishment failed us badly. The World Health Organization colluded with the Chinese government to lie about critically relevant facts during the early days of the outbreak. Once the coronavirus reached our shores, the CDC couldn't seem to produce working tests. Those were disasters. Many people died because the people we trusted to protect our health didn't do it. They've been thoroughly discredited. At the same time, though, we're being asked to trust these same people without hesitation, and for the most part, we are doing that. In other words, the experts failed, yet the experts now have more power than ever before. It's bewildering. In fact, it's reminiscent of 2008 when reckless behavior by the banks crippled the economy and crushed the middle class. But when it came time to fix it, we put bankers in charge of the cleanup. Now, this is not an argument against expertise. It's not even a populist argument. Of course, bankers understand finance. Epidemiologists understand coronavirus far more than most people do. So turning to experts in crisis makes sense, and we should, and hopefully we always will.
That is probably the most important minute and 50 seconds you're going to see probably this entire month, maybe this entire year. It's early. Again, for the little kid liberals listening, you can go turn off the show now. I mean that. It's not, I don't need your downloads or your views. We will be just fine. Please shut the show off because you're not going to handle what I'm about to tell you. Because I don't think you have the cerebral capacity outside of your TDS infection to process common sense anymore. What about what Tucker just said is unacceptable? In other words, he's not allowed. You have to understand the acceptable fence the liberal media has put around conversation right now is panic only. If you're not panicking people 24 hours a day, Joe, if you're not engaged in a 24-hour hysteria operation, you are not allowed to speak, and you will be shut out of the conversation as someone who wants blood and stock market returns only. 10 million people's jobs have been wiped out. They have been left with nothing on data that has not panned out. Some of you may take offense at the tone towards liberals today. I understand. I'm sorry. If it's not for you, I get it too. I'm not making any apologies. I'm sorry I'm not making any apologies for the tone. Because I'm going to explain to you why panic is the new normal and why it wasn't during a time I was a media figure. Because panic damages Trump right now. Panic damages the Republicans. And panic makes the government under the Trump administration look unacceptable. Therefore, any attempt to speak outside of their acceptable perimeter of conversation, saying common sense things like Tucker just said, like, hey, the data we use to shut down this entire economy about the threat, Joe, hasn't really panned out. Should we reevaluate that approach before we bankrupt another 20 or 40 million people? You're not allowed to say that. Panic only. As sentient beings using common sense, we're going to plow through the left wing. I know we will be attacked for this. I know it because the media is invested fully in panic now. Anything you say to question the data and say, is this response commensurate with the threat, which is very real? This virus is not a joke. It is highly contagious and it's very serious. That is not the question, however. The question, again, which we've been saying for months, is how serious is it? When you get on a plane, you say the same thing. When you go outside during flu season, you do the same calculus. Why have we thrown that calculus out now and say, no, this time we have to disregard all that and we have to impose the maximum cost on anyone and shut down this thing altogether, despite the fact that there's no vaccine. And when we open it up, the virus will likely spread again. Why has no one suggested that?
You just heard The Dan Bongino Show. You can also get Dan's podcasts on iTunes or SoundCloud and follow Dan on Twitter 24/7 @DBongino.